At the beginning of the movie, a man named Frank Martin is introduced, sitting in his car. Shortly after, a sexy woman approaches him and asks for help to change the tire of her car. However, since he is running late, Frank refuses the woman's request. Unexpectedly, the woman pulls out a gun and orders Frank to get out of his car. After this, 4 gangsters suddenly appear and quickly get into Frank's car to steal it. However, they failed to start the car because it had a security system that could only be activated using a specific code known only by Frank. When the thieves attempted to use violence against Frank, the situation quickly turned around, resulting in the 4 thugs being beaten up, showcasing Frank's exceptional skills in handling dangerous situations. Not long after, Frank arrived at the designated location, where it turned out his task this time was to pick up a young boy who had just finished school. The boy's name was Jack, and he fully understood the rules Frank had set when riding in his car. Although the task seemed simple, Jack eagerly looked forward to it, as he was always delighted whenever Frank drove him around. Furthermore, Frank often played guessing games with Jack during their trips, making their time together enjoyable. Upon arriving home, it was revealed that Jack was no ordinary child. His father, Jeff, was an important official who was constantly guarded and accompanied by security personnel. However, Jeff and his wife, Audrey, seemed to argue frequently. When Jack got out of the car, Audrey thanked Frank for always being there for her son. Additionally, Frank's mysterious demeanor seemed somewhat intriguing to her. She asked Frank for another favor, to take Jack to the dentist, which Frank agreed to. Unbeknownst to them, someone appeared to be eavesdropping on their conversation. The scene then shifted to the headquarters of the villains, where the tension was escalating. At that moment, a man named Johnny and his crew, including a seductive woman named Lola, seemed to be plotting something sinister. They then unveiled a deadly virus capable of killing a massive number of people, along with its antidote, which was extremely expensive and possibly the only hope of saving many lives. The next day, Lola, along with 2 of her accomplices, entered a hospital with malicious intentions. Meanwhile, Frank, who had brought Jack to the hospital for his dental checkup, was completely unaware of the impending danger. Without hesitation, Lola mercilessly killed the nurse and doctor on duty, demonstrating just how ruthless they were. Not long after, Frank accompanied Jack to the doctor's room and immediately sensed something was wrong. The doctor and nurse who usually attended to Jack were both supposedly sick, and the imposter nurse and doctor weren't acting like professionals. Adding to his suspicions, Frank noticed a tattoo on Lola's leg. His focus was momentarily distracted when his friend, Inspector Tarconi, landed from a flight and was heading home. Frank grew even more suspicious when he spotted blood dripping from behind a door. Jack was almost injected with the deadly virus, but Frank quickly acted, telling Jack to run while he faced the criminals. They managed to escape the highly dangerous situation. But before leaving the hospital, a bomb was secretly planted under Frank's car. As they drove away from the hospital, Frank and Jack faced another life-threatening situation when their car was suddenly fired upon. Fortunately, Frank's car was bulletproof, allowing them to escape safely. Meanwhile, Audrey and Jeff were shown preparing a surprise party to celebrate their son's birthday. As Frank arrived at the house gate, the Mafia boss called him and informed him that a bomb had been planted in his car. Although Frank's car was bulletproof, the bomb could easily kill them. To ensure their safety, Frank had no choice but to follow all of Johnny's instructions. After this, Lola reappeared, got into Frank's car, and gave him the location they needed to go to for Jack's safety. Without hesitation, Frank stepped on the gas pedal and tried to evade the pursuing police. The situation grew even more intense as they engaged in a high-speed chase through the streets. Frank had to rely on his exceptional driving skills to evade the relentless pursuit of law enforcement officers. Meanwhile, back at Jack's house, Audrey and her husband, Jeff, got into another argument, adding to the weight of their already challenging circumstances. Eventually, the chief of police arrived at the scene and revealed Frank's identity. The chief disclosed that Frank was a former Special Forces member who had served in various dangerous locations, including Lebanon, Syria, and Sudan. On the other hand, Frank and Jack finally reached the designated location, where they were immediately confronted by the Mafia boss. Wasting no time, Johnny contacted Jeff and demanded a massive ransom of $5 million. He also issued a chilling threat. If the ransom was not transferred within 2 hours, they would begin sending pieces of Jack's body to their home. In the midst of this tense situation, Johnny allowed Frank to leave the area. However, as Frank was about to get into his car, he noticed the bomb planted on it through the reflection of water beneath the vehicle. Acting quickly, Frank started the car and, using his exceptional driving skills, successfully removed the bomb just in time before it could detonate. Before long, Frank tried to explain to Jeff that he was not responsible for the incident. However, instead of understanding the situation, Jeff became angry and refused to believe Frank's explanations. In an effort to resolve the situation, Frank called Tarconi, who was at home enjoying his time baking a cake, completely unaware of the chaos happening outside. However, the situation changed when the police suddenly arrived and arrested Tarconi. Meanwhile, Frank reached out to Audrey, hoping to convince her that he was not at fault. Frank promised to do everything he could to free Jack and bring him back safely. After this, Frank returned to the hospital with strong determination to uncover the identities of the criminals responsible for the chaos. He went straight to the hospital's CCTV control room, hoping to find important clues from the recordings. During his search, Frank also discovered a dangerous drug that was intended to be injected into Jack. Not long after, Frank was seen fighting several criminals who were attempting to take back the drug, giving him another chance to showcase his combat skills. After knocking down the attackers, Frank took another drug from a drawer that he believed could help save Jack and turn the situation around. Meanwhile, Jeff was busy preparing the ransom money demanded by the kidnappers to free Jack. At the same time, Tarconi, who is currently in police custody, tried to defuse the situation by teaching the officers how to cook. Soon, Frank contacts Tarconi for help because he needs access to a computer to find more information about the identities of the criminals he is hunting. After conducting an investigation, it was found that the criminal was a Russian biologist who had once developed a biological weapon in a Siberian laboratory. Using this information, Frank quickly locates the criminal's hideout and immediately moves towards the said location. Knowing that their location has been discovered, the criminal tries to escape by taking a bus while Frank can be seen chasing in a jet ski. Luckily, Frank catches up with the criminal and forces him to reveal Jack's location. When the man refuses to talk, Frank injects a fake drug into his thigh, causing the criminal to immediately tighten his leg and run to get the antidote. At the same time, our hero calmly followed him. Meanwhile, Audrey, who was afraid of the fate of her son, had another argument with her husband. At that time, the police said that they had found Jack inside a van. Fearing that there was a bomb inside, they planned to open the door with a robot, but it suddenly malfunctions. As a result, Audrey is so frustrated and desperate that she can't wait anymore. She then takes matters into her own hands and runs to open the van door. When the door is opened, she feels relieved, the feeling of seeing that Jack is fine and there are no signs of explosives around him, but somehow this comfort is short-lived because the criminals have injected a dangerous virus into Jack's body. This virus is highly contagious and can have serious effect on the people around him. On the other hand, Frank finally reached the headquarters of the Mafia where he saw some criminals exposed to the virus. Meanwhile, the criminal who was injected by Frank can be seen begging a doctor to give him the antidote. It was then revealed that only 2 antidotes were left in the refrigerator. Not long after, Frank suddenly appeared and revealed that what he injected earlier was just water, which greatly enraged the criminal. He attempted to shoot Frank, but at that moment, the doctor revealed that Jack had been infected with the virus and was running out of time. Without warning, the doctor suddenly threw the 2 antidotes, prompting Frank to leap to catch them. Unfortunately, the antidote Frank tried to grab shattered in the middle of the road. At the same time, Frank immediately ran and jumped to save the other antidote, which was almost run over by a truck. Meanwhile, Jack started feeling pain, and both Audrey and Jeff began experiencing the same symptoms. To make matters worse, Jeff needed to leave as he was scheduled to attend a major conference that would be watched by a large audience. Later that night, Frank secretly entered Audrey's house to administer the antidote to Jack. Afterward, he told Audrey that he needed to find the other members of the Mafia to obtain more cures for the virus. Meanwhile, Jeff, who was already at the conference, began coughing and unintentionally spread the dangerous virus to the people around him. At the same time, Frank reconnected with Tarconi to ask for help in locating the Mafia boss. On the other hand, Johnny and Lola were watching the news coverage of the conference Jeff attended. It was revealed that their plan was to sell the antidote at an extremely high price and earn billions of dollars from it. Not long after, Frank arrived at the Mafia headquarters, determined to stop their cruel actions and retrieve the antidote for the spreading virus. In this action-packed showdown, Frank once again showcased his remarkable skills, defeating all opponents who stood in his way. After taking down the guards, Frank finally confronted the Mafia boss responsible for all the chaos. However, Frank had to act carefully, as the only available antidote was currently inside Johnny's body. The tension escalated when Lola appeared, armed with two powerful guns and ready to fight. Nevertheless, Frank wasted no time and quickly gained control of the situation with his expertise. Meanwhile, a chopper was seen flying in the distance. It turned out Johnny was attempting to escape from Frank. Realizing the urgency, Frank jumped into a high-speed sports car and started chasing Johnny at full speed, determined not to let his adversary get away easily. This thrilling chase led to a runway, where Johnny planned to flee to Colombia using his private jet. Once aboard, Johnny felt safe, but the situation dramatically changed when Frank suddenly appeared. Without hesitation, a fight broke out between Johnny and Frank inside the plane. In the midst of the intense battle, a gunshot rang out, hitting the pilot and causing the plane to lose control. The aircraft began to nosedive and eventually crashed into the ocean, creating inevitable chaos. Despite the extremely dangerous situation, Frank remained focused and successfully captured Johnny, putting an end to the criminal's escape attempt through his swift and skilled actions. A few days later, Jeff, Audrey, and now Jack were seen recovering in the hospital. Frank, who could only offer support from afar, left them flowers as a token of his care. Now that his mission was complete and everything had returned to normal, Frank started taking on new clients again. And this is where the movie ends. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed the film.